So I'm going to talk about American anthropology, which is obviously a little bit different from anthropology in Europe. So that's why I have American anthropology, because that's what I know. So doing anthropology and then defining the discipline as well. So in America, we have anthropology as the field where archaeology is under. So if someone asks me, for instance, what profession am I? I would say I'm an archaeologist, but I'm also an anthropologist. So anthropology is the umbrella field that we use to talk about anything from forensic anthropology to archaeology to ethnographic work. So any kind of Discovery or National Geographic channel show that you've seen, that's like someone sitting there like taking notes of a culture, that's anthropology too.
That's where you do it, right?
Right, that's what, yeah, exactly. They just put their own in it. So, does anyone know the definition of anthropology? What does it mean? No?
Study of culture.
Study of culture, perfect. So it's a study of culture, a study of human culture, but then we also tend to look at animal culture as well to see the comparisons and contrasts. Does anyone know what holism is, or holistic? So if you were to have a holistic perspective, you know what that means? Something as a whole, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we tend to do as far as an approach to anthropology, is to try to look at everything with a holistic perspective. So in this respect, we take from other disciplines. That's why anthropology is a soft science, because we take from the other disciplines and use other disciplines in our research and our approach to understand the world. And anthropology is a unique way of understanding human behavior. So there's certain techniques and certain tools that we use to understand the world around us and understand different cultures. I'll go into that in a little bit. So the four subfields that American anthropology is divided into is, we should have them. No, sorry. I do this a lot. I switch around slides all the time. So it's biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology. So biological or physical anthropology, does anyone know what that could be about? Without looking at the
Study of plants or something?
Study of plants, but then again the human side of it too. So what will be the connection with the study of plants, how people maybe ate plants in the past, right? Mm-hmm. Or how we are evolving to the digestive system is evolving to the cultural nuances of today as opposed to yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. So this is this idea of the human adaptation to the biology, to our body. A lot of biological anthropology is focused on human evolution, so looking at the way that humans have evolved through time, through things like looking at diet or looking at the way that we use tools, the way our brain is working and adapting to the culture or adapting to our environment. So it's a really interesting field, I think, because there's so many different... this is where you start to hear things like the missing link. People start to talk about, what is the missing link, right? There's no missing link. That's actually a misnomer. We don't have a missing link with human evolution. Evolution is always changing. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, we're just looking at the different ways that the biology, that the physical attributes have changed through time, through looking at different human aspects, right? And mostly, the biological anthropology is present-based, so it's looking at the past and perspective of the present. Cultural anthropology, what could we think of with cultural anthropology?
Things that people used.
Things that people use. Exactly, yeah. So that's delving a little bit into archaeology, but yeah, definitely cultural anthropology is very close to archaeology. They're almost sisters in the respect of cultural anthropology is the present day observation and approach to studying culture, whereas archaeology is the past. So we use a lot of cultural anthropology to understand archaeology and vice versa, right? So, and then the last one is linguistic. what would linguistic be?
Study of language.
Language, exactly. So I have a couple of slides with language too. Obviously, it's important to us. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. I always like to say this when I was teaching classes. I would always talk about how there's 3,000 existing human languages. I think that's incredible to think about how many ways in which we express ourselves and communicate, and how linguistics is intrinsic. It's so important to the way that we see the world and communicate, and I'm sure you've seen that through teaching English, that this is a worldview, this is something that's very tied to culture. And archaeology, I kind of skipped through archaeology because I'm going to talk about it a lot, is the study of past cultures, right? So one of the things I'd like to talk about, though, is a couple of, I'm not going to be able to do this in 15 minutes, but a lot of misnomers is that archaeology is the study of the very old, like the prehistoric. Yes, we do study prehistoric, but for instance, I'm a historical archaeologist. So my concentration is 19th century, so it's very recent, obviously. In Europe, it's actually considered a very new field, a subfield within archaeology, because in Europe, medieval archaeology is probably the latest that anyone studies. But in America, of course, because of the history, we tend to look at more modern culture and think of that and consider that as archaeology as well. Okay, so a couple of just different language, I was thinking target language, right, that we probably could use for activity. Right? Like, oh, right. Good. Species. What would you define as a species? Anyone know? You can look at the thing. It's okay.
It's a race, no?
Race is actually different from species. So race is actually, it's good that you brought that up, because race is a cultural construct. There is actually no biological difference with race. Species, there is a biological difference, and that is actually the comparison and contrast between the two. Is that when you're looking at different organisms, you can talk about different species, and there is actually a very real biological difference. Whereas race, there is no biological difference. These are physical attributes that we're looking at as a biological difference. The only thing is melanin, which is just a variation, or it's just the skin color.
Skin pigment. Yeah.
Exactly. Culture is. Anyone can think of what culture? Culture is a hard thing to define, actually. When we're in class, we talk about culture for weeks sometimes.
Culture is the way that people behaved with each other, no?
Exactly, yeah. So it's the way that people behaved with each other, and it's learned behavior, right? So this is not something where you're born with culture. You don't, talk about it as a baby and just have culture, right? This is something that we all learn, and we adapt and learn through various ways. I think that's why it's difficult to define culture, because there's so many things that we do in life that we don't realize are culturally adapted to. The way that we eat, the way we talk, the way we think is all culturally adapted. An artifact. This is my favorite. What's an artifact?
Like objects maybe that you find like a specific. When you excavate, for example, and you find like a stone, like not a stone. It's like something that they use like back in the days, maybe.
Perfect. Yes.
Like an old spoon, like a cup.
Perfect, yeah. So use is a very important thing when we're talking about artifacts. Artifact is anything modified or made by a human being. Now, I say human, but culturally, when we're talking about animals do have a sense of culture as well. There's some, for instance, what's her name? Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall, with the chimpanzees, with monkeys, she's very prolific in studying primate behavior, right? Primate culture. So in this respect, it's very difficult to say they don't have artifacts. They use, for instance, if they take a twig off of, or a branch off of a tree and take all the leaves off and dip the branch into an ant pile, take the ants and eat the ants. That's an artifact. That's something that was modified for a tool. So again, you might see in textbooks this idea of it being just a human attribute, but I would use it as anything made or modified by a living thing, right? Cultural relativity. So this is the approach that we use. This is what I was talking about before with the tools for anthropology. So what could cultural relativity mean? Well, cultural obviously is culture, Relativity. What does relativity mean?
Being related.
Being related.
Yeah.
Exactly. So being able to, the way I like to remember it was to be able to relate to other cultures. So, I mean, as obviously with what we do in teaching English, this is a constant thing that we do. We don't even know we're doing it. It's constantly relating to the student. Maybe, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure you do, but when I am teaching, I'm constantly talking about the values that I have as an American and the values that Spanish. Is this different? Is this similar? Is this, what are the contrasting comparisons? And the cultural relativity plays a part because you're actually looking at a culture non-objectively. So you're saying, okay, I don't know, one of the examples I like to use is in Peru, one of the delicacies is guinea pig. Mm-hmm. And in America we have them as pets. So there's this idea of, a lot of people in America would look at Peruvians and say, oh, that's so disgusting that they're eating guinea pig. But if you're being culturally relative, you'd say, okay, well, this is a different culturally acceptable food. I don't want to eat that, but that's okay not that it's okay, but you're non-objectively looking at something and saying, this is within its own right as a culture, right? It gets a little tricky sometimes when you're thinking of moral issues, but for the most part, that's what you're trying to do. I'm going way over, aren't I? I have a little more time.
It's all right.
It's okay?
It's very interesting.
Okay, so culture, we talked a little bit about learning. We talked about artifacts. Culture is pretty much anything transmitted from one person to another. So who is the first person or people that you learn culture from?
Parents?
Parents, exactly. Your parents are the first source of learning culture. In fact, they're probably the major, it's common sense, but it's the major place or source of where you're able to receive most of the cultural ideas of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And then what would happen, what do you think the next line of transmission would be for learning culture?
Siblings.
Sibling or family, yeah, family. And then after that?
Maybe like
School, exactly. So school would be the place where you start to learn institutionalized acceptable behavior for society. So in family, you learn values of morals, what's right and wrong. You carry that over into school, but school's more that institutional, sit down, learn, behave, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's important because the culture, I'm not going to read all that, but just to think about the culture and the language, this obviously is the vehicle which culture is transmitted. So at a very early age, you start to learn not only how to behave acceptably in a society, but also the correct ways to talk in a society, right? So again, I'm not going to go through all this because it's a lot, but it's very interesting to think of the connections between language and culture. There's a hypothesis that we always talk about in anthropology called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Has anyone heard of it before?
Which one?
Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It was created by two fire engineers. They would go around and look at the fire hazard safety regulations in buildings, like building inspectors. I don't know why, but for some reason they started to, because they were thinking of different terminology for fire and how people looked at fire and emergencies. And somehow that evolved into this hypothesis about language, talking about how does language shape the way that we think, or is it the other way around? And it's a hypothesis because there is no way to test that. There is no way to actually confirm either way. But I love that idea about thinking about the language that you learn. Is it shaping your vision? Is it actually shaping your perspective? Or is it the other way around, where the environment is informing the way that you think? So for instance, if I said table, everyone thinks of, maybe, I'm gesturing of course, but if I said cat, of course, cat is something that's not in the room, but everyone can conjure up an idea of what cat means. Mm-hmm. But then there's emotion attached to that. Maybe you had a cat, maybe your cat died, maybe you hate cats, These ideas that are connected to this, it's very culturally related, and it's just an interesting concept to think of how language is so intrinsic to the way that we just focus in the world, that we're operating in the world. Okay, this is